You're watching Sitka Community TV. Be sure to like and subscribe if you like what you see.
So while they're settling in over in their chairs, let me talk a little bit about each one of these young men, except for Scott, because I really just don't like Scott Haverstead.
Battery died. I have. It's a last minute change.
I hate to think that my microphone died because it's a statement about me. But
I can't eat two.
okay. Oh, hello. Oh, yeah, a little closer. Okay. So let me talk a little bit about our three distinguished gentlemen up here. Preston Carnahan is the Regional Vice President of Destinations at Royal Caribbean Group, focusing on the execution of sustainable strategies in Alaska, California, and the Mexican Pacific. Preston and his team manage RCG's access to destinations and the guest experience throughout the region by partnering with government relations, ShoreX, and operations to deliver great vacations responsibly. Prior to joining Royal Caribbean Group, Preston spent more than a decade at Norwegian Cruise Lines, where he last served as a staff captain. He has also held leadership roles in marine operations, port infrastructure, business development, and commercial development. Born in St. Louis and calling Seattle home, Preston brings a passion for people and the cruise industry to everything he encounters. He proudly serves on the Alaska Raptor Center's board based here in Sitka. He is a graduate of the United States Merchant Marine Academy and holds a United States Coast Guard Master Mariner license. In his spare time, when he has it, having conquered the 7 continents and never without a side project, I can believe that, he is an avid wildlife and outdoor enthusiast. Preston Carnahan. Okay. Our second presenter will be Zach Kirkpatrick, right here in Sitka for Alaska Dream Cruises. Zach was born and raised in Juneau, I'll forgive you for that, and developed a passion for showcasing his home state from a young age. After working as a naturalist and captain for Allen Marine Tours, Zach graduated with a degree in advertising with an emphasis in account management from Brigham Young University, and was determined to apply his education in the state and the industry that he loves. Zach now lives with his wife, and oh, by the way, it was kind of fun. He had to stop by here and say, oh, by the way, I don't have 2 kids, I now have 3. I'm like, that was a good catch, because if your wife's in the crowd, she's gonna scratch her head. Okay.
This was not something I just found out about. This was just an old bio.
Okay.
Just to be clear.
I'm glad you clarified that for all of us, because I was a little concerned. Okay, and his 3 sons here in Sitka, where he serves as the Chief Marketing Officer for Alaska Dream Cruises and Allen Marine Tours. Zach Kirkpatrick. And our final presenter, Scott Haverstead, Managing Director for the Alaska market for Alaska Airlines. Now, it took a little while to find his bio, so I was actually going to start off with, I found his information on the state of Alaska's court view system. But now that I have his information, I guess I'd better be nice. So Scott is a lifelong Alaskan, currently residing in Anchorage with his lovely bride, Amy, daughter, Catherine, and son, Jack. Scott graduated from Ketchikan High School in 1989 and then attended flight school, earning his multi-engine commercial land and sea ratings. He returned to Ketchikan to fly for Taquan Airline in the summer and attend college in the fall at Boise State University. Scott graduated with a Bachelor of Business Administration in Marketing in 1997 and returned to Ketchikan to continue his flying career. Shortly after returning, however, he pivoted to advance his business career, accepting a job with the Ketchikan Visitors Bureau as the Director of Marketing. In 2001, Scott went to work for Alaska Airlines as an account executive in Anchorage and was later elevated to Manager of Regional Sales, Alaska, and today he is the Managing Director for the Alaska market. Scott is very active in the community, and he currently serves on the Providence Alaska Regional Board, the Resource Development Council's Executive Committee, the Alaska Travel Industry Association. He just finished his year as a chair, and now he's the past chair. The Alaska Air Carriers Association Executive Committee, the Alaska Resource Education as a board member, and the Kenai River Sports Fishing Association as its Youth Classic Chair. You're kind of busy. You almost sound good, but I know better. This is a very good panel. It was designed to present the large cruise industry, the small cruise industry, and the airline industry with regard to initiatives as they look forward. So let's enjoy their presentations, and then after all three are done, we'll take questions from the audience. And first up is Preston.
Thank you for that sports broadcaster announcement for all of us here. I just start by saying thank you to everyone who's gone before us, the other panelists. I really appreciated you kicking this off and getting some really good conversations going and starting this for everyone for this conference. And take a moment also to thank Camille and Tonya for getting everyone together this time. A lot of work goes into this. It's not missed on it. We really appreciate that. I'm going to move this for a second. As was mentioned, I work for Royal Caribbean Group. Yes. Which is one of the larger cruise lines. So wanted to go through some thoughts today and share kind of a company perspective in someone who has the privilege of bringing visitors to Alaska, visiting your homes and your communities, and understanding, our thoughts and what we do. So I just wanted to start out, this is a picture of one of our ships, Celebrity Millennium, at Icy Strait Point in Hoonah. That's one of the projects we had started with Hoonah almost 20 years ago now, in building out some infrastructure to bring that in. Celebrity, one of our brands, was probably one of the first ships to go there. Gotta give it up for the largest ship in Alaska here, Ovation of the Seas, also at Icy Strait Point. Very happy to have that, and we can get in a little bit more to the size of ships and kind of what that means and the evolution of how that's looked in the Alaska market, especially since about 2016. Our ambition at Royal Caribbean Group is to provide great vacations responsibly. And, we'll unpack a little bit of what we mean by responsibly. It's not only environmentally, it's, on a community basis, it's how we're received in all sorts of communities around the world, but especially here in Alaska. And Alaska remains a leader for us as a corporation. We go to, as we see, about 1,000 destinations globally. However, a lot of the initiatives that we're going to talk about today and see are things that are copied by my colleagues throughout the world. And it's something I'm very proud to be able to say that we start here in Alaska. The three brands we have that come to this region is Royal Caribbean, Celebrity, and Silversea. The other two brands are our German counterparts, TUI and Hapag-Lloyd. Spoke with Detlef there. We'll try to get some more Germans here. They like to travel amongst themselves, so it's a little bit more challenging. So where do we go? Where do we start? A little overview of the cruise industry and how we get visitors. It's mainly out of Vancouver and Seattle. And then we see a kind of scatter chart of where we go. We have some home porting in Seward and Whittier. This remains largely true for all of the cruise brands. So a lot of this applies to our industry, not only our corporation. Our brands will bring around 500,000 guests, visitors to Alaska this year, out of the roughly 1.5, 1.6 million that's going to come just based on cruising. Little view of what we have. We mentioned for us, it's kind of large to small, in addition to what Zach brings, which is completely unique and great experience also. Who's cruising for us? Just quickly, we have a great trend in Alaska. I think historically it's been focused, or the idea has been that there have been older guests coming to Alaska, and we're happy to say that that is not the case. For what we see in our data, we see a very similar demographic to other regions of the world, the Caribbean. We have our families coming, we have multiple generations, and we have many guests who are having the cruise of a lifetime multiple times, and we're very happy about that. So an Alaskan journey, when I was thinking about what I'd like you to get out of this, it is really to go through this journey with me as someone from a cruise line, of how we see Alaska, and then also to have a discussion about what else we need to see in Alaska and how we need to see it. As a company, global company, we have many initiatives that over time have evolved from really, I would say, focusing on our impact to the oceans and our ships to where we are today, which includes everything from the past, but it's also evolved to a point where we understand that we have impacts on everywhere we go. We want to make sure that those impacts are positive, and that our guests understand, exactly what that means to them when they visit communities. That's something important, and as we've talked and heard a lot, there's an educational perspective of that. It's something that we have not focused on a lot in the past, and we're working on very hard through relationships. We've recently, in the past years, as we built out a development team, joined many of the visitors bureaus, created relationships through adding a team that's dedicated to Alaska. In the past, we hadn't had that since 2012. And I think that's been a great evolution for us. So we'll quickly look at what Royal Caribbean considers our blue-green promise, which, as I said in the past, was really focused on oceans. And now it goes throughout the communities and the coastal communities we visit, and it's really the pillars of us as a business. Can you play this one?
A healthy ocean starts with bold initiatives. It requires dedication to sustainable progress. In some ways, this means going back to the basics: reduce, reuse, recycle. In other ways, it means looking 30 years into the future. At Royal Caribbean Group, we are always exploring new ways of going above and beyond. We push the limits and ask ourselves, how can we do better? We design the most efficient ships possible, requiring less energy and now putting reduced emissions. We treat every drop of water that leaves our ships. We are on a journey to zero waste, a path without single-use plastics, a landfill-free way of life. These initiatives are important to us because at its core, oceans connect each and every one of us.
So that really is a quick video of what we believe and how we think as a company of our impact. Yes, it was put together very well, and I think sounds good also, but it truly is a reflection of us as a company and what we really endeavor to do. I still haven't been able to get the graphic artist to make this version for Alaska. The next time I come back, we'll have a graphic like this that will focus much more on Alaska.
A healthy ocean starts with bold initiatives. It requires dedication.
Thank you. One highlight here that we have, Royal Caribbean for the past 7 years has an ongoing partnership with WWF US. There's 3 pillars of that. It really is philanthropy, so we contribute to some of the mutual causes that we have with WWF globally. We have a monitoring system where they are our third party that holds us accountable for the initiatives that we agree that we're going to do, mostly on the sustainability and the community side. And then we also have, as an example, in the Philippines, Royal Caribbean worked with a coastal community, a small village, who had a lot of whale sharks. And I know we've discussed some opportunities for tourism here. And so this is an example of what we've done, which is worked with locals in that community to create a sustainable tour, defined as sustainable by the GSTC, which we'll touch on in a moment. The operation of it is limited to village members, and it really has become an opportunity for growth for that entire community. There's hotels, there's restaurants associated simply with this whale shark tour now in the Philippines. And I understand that some of these examples will be not regional and specific, but I think it's valuable to understand kind of some of the initiatives that are happening around the world and what we can bring back here to be more successful in this region. So another area that we hadn't focused on in the past as a company that we do a much better job of now simply by doing it is meeting with ports and stakeholders and explaining how their community looks from our guest perspective. Because we have that data on our guests, and we're able to share, insight numerically, I would say, that otherwise it's a lot of discussion. So what happens when a certain number of tours are offered or they're not offered? Is the guest more satisfied or less satisfied? And we put that together. So I came up with a port here called Tongass Cove. It is not real, so please do not quote these numbers. But this is an example of how we view and share with elected leaders or communities of the ratings that our guests provide in different areas. And so we're always looking to work together with local business leaders, local cultural leaders to maximize our guest satisfaction. And this is one of the ways that we do it is through these interactive meetings and sharing sessions. And I think it's been very well received because it provides insight that otherwise it's just not available. And we do have this information from our guests. So with that information, what do we do with it? Well, our goal is to have a satisfied cruise guest and a satisfied member of the community. That's really our mutual goal that allows us to continue to have, I would say the social license to operate our ships in communities. We are guests in communities and we need to be invited back every year. And there's a responsibility that goes with that. We have a Shorex team. It's based in Miami, where our company is, but there are individuals assigned to each region. This is some information, that we send out. Some in the room here that work with us have seen this. There's a process to become a tour operator. And one of the great things is we accept all solicitations. We're always happy to hear about new initiatives. We go out once a year for the RFPs, but we're constantly seeking and looking for new opportunities. So what do we do on the sustainability side of tours in general? We work with the GSTC. In Alaska, there are currently 2 tour operators that are certified under GSTC. We like that trend and we fully support it. And so when we work with tour operators, we greatly encourage them to become certified. And one of the drivers for this is that through this process, there's accountability in your initiatives and there's follow-up. And I think it's something that we all understand it needs to happen, where we're measuring the impact of cruising and tourism on communities, and this is one of the checks that we have to go through that process on a company level. So here's an example when we talk about guests and how we're looking at Shorex and tours. So one of our brands, Celebrity, recently did an exercise for hiring out a new team, and that team is called the Destination Experience Team. And the Celebrity brand that has 3 ships here really said, we want our guests to have the most authentic experience in Alaska's destinations, and we're going to use Alaska as the boiler room for this new team. And so there's a team of 5. A year ago, they didn't exist. And this was the beginning of their hiring phase. And Celebrity said, we think our guests fall into 4 categories. And these are the 4 categories that they're in. And we want to have feedback from this team on how a destination and tours would fit most with their experience. So I very much agree with this for the Celebrity brand. I wouldn't agree much for the Royal Caribbean brand or Silversea, but this is very accurate. And it's an example of how we go about building tours and, again, just ensuring that we have authentic experiences available. We're not out looking to create those. We can, partner, but we're really looking to develop relationships with the individuals who already own them, already create them, or in many cases, they just live that life, and our guests want to have that experience. Especially on the food side, Celebrity is known as a foodie mecca, and so many of the guests go on Celebrity, not only the ship, but in the destinations for the food. Yep. So here we talk about just some of the dedicated resources. If anyone has any questions or wants to reach out, we'll absolutely connect you in order to do that. So one of the last parts I'll finish on is we have what's called destination activations. So destinations, let's say for us, is individual cruise ports that our ships go to throughout the year. In Alaska, the larger ships go to a regular set of ports on a weekly basis, mainly because of infrastructure is available at those ports and it's not available at other ones. But we have many here, including from Unalaska, where we have Silversea go. It's still an amazing experience, just for a different group of cruisers. So the Destination Activation Program is led by a director, and the purpose of that is to really ingrain ourselves with the communities in order to understand what's important to them and find a way to express that through our business in the community. And we do that through seeking out artisans, food experiences, as I mentioned, and through the history that exists in the communities that we visit. So here's a map of existing activations or items that we have done recently, and some of them are ongoing. You'll see, again, some ongoing in Alaska, and others from around the world. In Galveston, we recently completed construction of our first net zero cruise terminal. Really amazing terminal that we were able to complete during the pandemic. So when I look at this, I see a lot of effort here going into understanding what's important to the community and providing a platform for our guests to experience that or to actually physically show that. So some of these would be a statue inside of a cruise terminal made by a local artist. In Ketchikan, that's focused around the Salmon Walk, which is something that I think is important to mention, which is about 30% of our guests go on a tour, just roughly. Don't quote me on it, it's going to change, but let's say it's 30%. And that leaves 70% of the guests who do something between an independent tour or they're what celebrity calls the Maverick, and no matter what you do, they're not getting on a tour. They did not come to Alaska to be told what to do. Very much like many of you that I've met here. So we're working in the Ketchikan Salmon Walk as an example of a strong community is a great cruise community for us, where there's something to do without paying for it. When the ships aren't there, the community can enjoy it, and it's just a better place to live and a better place to be. Recently, we had a competition for one of our newer ships, the Icon of the Seas, and that was an artist competition in order to complete a mural that's going to exist on the ship. We have had some discussions about, Alaska and how we integrate that into the ships that I can touch on in a moment. So quickly, in the Bahamas, they have pepper sauce, and it's everywhere. And we have a private island in the Bahamas, and it's one of the largest, cruising ports that we go to. And so something very important in the Bahamas that we found out is the pepper sauce. And most of our guests said, we'd really like something local. We'd rather not have Tabasco or something else. And so we put out a competition throughout the Bahamian Islands and ended up with Mama Sassy's pepper sauce. If you like hot, here it is. And then we also serve that on our island in the Bahamas. And that was one of the activations also that we have. Artisan Craft Market, this is something that we support and develop. Again, it's very much in line with how we want to have our guests experience the destination. And what's next? Well, as I mentioned, there's been a lot of discussions recently, and I think some in this room have been involved in it, and both of us are under NDA, and we can't say exactly what it is, but it's a platform for us to continue to share some Alaska Native culture on our ships. Not only the ships in Alaska, but that's going to go around globally, and I think that's an important aspect is, the culture and the history here and the landscape. It's universally a wow factor. It's amazing. And so we see from our adventurers on ships everywhere that it's something that they really respond to. So with that, thank you. Greatly appreciate your time and everyone being here.
Thank you very much, Preston. Next up, it's the young man with 3 kids.
I think I'm gonna do the traditional podium method here because some things I don't want to forget in my notes. Yeah, so last week Tony had sent out a bio she had on file. She said, does everything look okay here? I just gave a quick thumbs up. Then I got a text from my boss, the owner, Jamie Cagle, this morning. He goes, which one of your sons don't you claim? It's a weird way to look up, or to wake up, I don't know what you're talking about. And I apologize to my 9-month-old Casey James, 3 sons. But on behalf of the Allen Marine family of companies, I'm always just kind of humbled to speak, often as acting as a face or a spokesperson for a company that has such an incredible Alaskan legacy. And I think part of that, when I think about that, I think there's a little bit of this cultural component maybe of the Allen family not enjoying the vanity of talking about themselves. And so, but we also recognize that we do some amazing stuff and we want to be out more kind of talking about, especially the partnerships, which when I look around the room, there's so many friends and partners and just great supporters, and we're so grateful for that. It's sometimes hard because we've got, we've got multiple companies, but 2 distinct ones when it comes to tourism. We have Allen Marine Tours, which provides shore excursions for larger and mid-sized and even some smaller ships. And then we have Alaskan Dream Cruises. And I think The intent today was to maybe steer a little bit more towards our small ship cruising, Alaskan Dream Cruises, but I'll cover both. And I do want to point out this logo on the right is a new logo, and I'm going to talk about that actually in a little bit. So, I think that we need some background in order to understand. A lot of you will know this background, but some of you may not, and I think it's incredibly important. If we go to the, I've got the ability to do this on PDF, right? Let's try it. The point is, sir?
Down is for the next one.
There we go. So we are an Alaska Native-owned company. In 1967, Bob and Betty Allen, the founders of Allen Marine, moved with their 5 children from Kodiak to Sitka aboard the Alaska Marine Highway. They were on the Tuscamina. Betty was Alaska Native of the Tlingit tribe and grew up in Juneau. Bob was from California, but from a young age they moved to Nenana, and so he'd been in Alaska since his teenage years. Soon after arriving in Sitka, so they'd purchased this shipyard, the same one you'll find in Jamestown Bay. This was 1967. They had this issue in the summer times where all the boats that they were servicing are generally out fishing. And so what do? Well, with their innovation, they said, let's start tours. So they resurrected a sunken motor yacht, and they outfitted it for sightseeing tours with a lot of elbow grease from the family. This was a true family operation. And that was kind of the genesis of tours, right? Right here in our backyard, if you opened up the curtains, you'd almost see it in Silver Bay. And so they kind of caught this, as Bob has told me before, this fortuitous timing of interest in going to Alaska and seeing Alaska and cruising Alaska. And to make a story that is literally a book, a fascinating book, a lot shorter, they caught that tide and then they began to spread throughout the region, even building eventually their own vessels. And every little piece of, when you look at traditional Allen Marine boats that you think of, catamarans, but we don't just have catamarans, we have some other vessels as well. Everything is so thoughtfully designed, the panoramic windows, so that you don't have to be outside on a rainy day, but you can still take in all of the sights. And the hospitality that you'll find aboard. We try, even though we're getting bigger, we try to make it this family ambiance, because again, it still lives on in the family today, that legacy. The current owner, Jamie Cagle, the grandson of Bob and Betty Allen, it's still a family-owned operation. And I just wanted to show a few, I think, amazing pictures. This photo is one of our newer vessels. First of all, that's the St. Theodosius. And it is in the shadow, even though it's still more than a quarter mile away, to be clear. There's some photography angles going on here, of the Hubbard Glacier. So now we have a tour that is running out of Yakutat. It's not touring the community of Yakutat, but we rendezvous with ships out in Yakutat Bay and give these Hubbard Glacier tours. So that's a relatively new experience. But so Allen Marine, a lot of people say you've got this cruise line, you've got your tours. Allen Marine Tours is definitely the largest of our companies, and the vast majority of the folks that we carry, the guests we carry, are coming from the large cruise lines. We have operations out of Ketchikan. We're in Sitka, of course, in Juneau. We have some contract services that we provide in Glacier Bay and at Icy Strait Point. And all sorts of, you think of whale watching, of course we have that, especially in Juneau, but all sorts of tours, from culinary experiences, which we'll talk about, to a lot of glacier viewing, things like Tracy Arm, the Hubbard Glacier, and so a pretty wide array of experiences. This I just wanted to give, I've got a cool time-lapse video, I wish I would have embedded it, but here's just a little view into our shipyard, and this was the build of that boat that you saw at the glacier, the St. Theodosius. I'll make a point to that end. I am a born and raised Juneauite, and I always wanted, I went off to advertising school, right, and all my friends were going to these big cities, and I was like, gosh, I really want to be home. That's kind of where I want to do my business, but where do you have advertising opportunities? So I always just love to make the point that we can think about tourism or the visitor industry in terms of, yeah, it's a bunch of seasonal workers. That's true, and that's also important, right? Because it puts a lot of local kids through college, including me. But beyond that, it's not just seasonal, transient opportunities. If I look through the Allen Marine family of companies, there are marketers and accountants, and especially when we look at the shipyard, we're getting to welders and electricians and plumbers, all because these large cruise lines are coming in and we're able to showcase. So that's an important part that point I like to make about some of the sustainability and importance of this industry. So let's move and talk about Alaskan Dream Cruises. This was in 2011 that the family started this, and this is now getting into providing our own overnight cruises in the small or expedition, micro cruise realm. So we have listed up here the Baranof, the top two, the Baranof and Admiralty, are 49 passenger ships. On the bottom right is the Chichikov Dream, left is 76 passengers, and then the Alaskan Dream on the right at 40 passengers. And then we have the newest addition to our fleet. It was a former Bering Sea crab vessel turned kind of premier expedition vessel, the Cruisoff Explorer. And you can see just after the wheelhouse there, that work to add a lounge dining room was done here in our shipyard. So just to talk a little bit about, this is where we really are able to delve into some of the cultural experiences we have off the beaten path. So out of Juneau, Skagway, Ketchikan, the big ports of call, getting into the smaller communities. This is just one of our itineraries, the Inside Passage Sojourn. So you can see it's leaving out of Sitka, and this also runs in reverse. But I'll stop first maybe on day 3 in Glacier Bay, always trying to make sure we have a stop and a cultural moment there at Bartlett Cove with the new clan house, which is amazing. And then in Wrangell, there are cultural experiences with both the museum, but Petroglyph Beach. So we're able to talk about Alaska Native artwork. You get into Kasan, which is just, they're all amazing stops, but I think about Kasan and see in my mind's eye the guests that are walking, seeing these beautiful totems, ending at the whale house, and getting that interpretive experience. And then Metlakatla with just amazing dance show and the drums. And so you begin to paint a picture of kind of how we have a presence in even some of the smallest places in Southeast Alaska, and we're really proud of that fact. Here is a picture of some community members in regalia in Cake. Another itinerary, not listed on that specific itinerary, we call it in Cake, and we have great relationships there. Here is a photo from Metlakatla. And so, one of the things that we're always talking about that was, it's a great timing with the previous panel, is how we are integrating this culture. So it's great when we go into the villages and they have it set up to give tours and to provide the interpretation, the cultural stories, etc. We also work with local elders and educators as our guides to say, we have these non-Alaska Native expedition leaders and naturalists, and guide us in how we should be talking, the stories that we can tell, the stories that we shouldn't tell, and guide us through that. So the owners are very cognizant and very calculated and respectful in how they go about that. Of course, as an Alaska Native owned company, that's extremely important. I just wanted to put some of the communities up if you took a snapshot of all our itineraries. So Sitka, Cake, Petersburg, Juneau, Wrangell, even going into Pelican now, Kasan, Metlakatla, Ketchikan, Skagway, Haines. We have one of our itineraries that even started going into Klawock. So to talk a little bit about our new initiatives. Unfortunately, I was just sidebarring with Jamie. There seems to be so much that at this moment in time I can't stand up and announce or talk about, but exciting things to come. I first want to just talk about everything we do, thinking about our legacy, thinking about our Alaska Native heritage. And so we did a rebrand. We were kind of sharing logos before with Alan Marine and Alaskan Dream Cruises, but we tapped our wonderful friend and very talented friend, Mary Goddard, to give a rebrand. So this is a logo that was announced, I think, just last month. Thanks, Mary. It's beautiful. Give a hand to Mary for that. And we wanted it to have, Jamie was clear from the beginning, we want some of the traditional color palette. Certainly when it gets into the form line, we know that there are some rules and guidance to follow when it comes to that. That's why we, part of the reason, besides her raw talent, wanted Mary Goddard to help lead the charge on that. So right down to the logo. Oh, and I should mention the eagle being the moiety of our beloved matriarch, Betty Allen. And so that is the symbolism there. Okay, so to talk a little bit about our initiatives. I was sidebarring with Jamie on this, and I was like, if I get into trying to name all of the village corporations or the tribes that we work with, I'm inevitably going to leave someone else. So I'm not going to try to go down the list, because from Yakutat down to Metlakatla, this whole Inside Passage, anywhere we're going, there are partnerships in that to some degree. And so all of those communities you saw listed, there are partnerships there. Not only with the folks that are actually organizing the tours, but also always trying to include local artisans or people that are harvesting foods, always trying to give a platform and an audience for these people. So this gets into what we're talking about with regenerative tourism and sustainable tourism and what this looks like. I'll definitely point to some of the, on a broader scale, the regional partners like Sea Alaska, who, speaking of Mary Goddard, was just in this role as a regional catalyst for regenerative tourism. And this was a partnership that started several years ago, and really kind of this innovative position that garnered a lot of national and even international attention for, I would say, for Alan Marine and for Sea Alaska, but beyond that, I would say for the region. Most importantly, it garnered this attention of, look at how these folks are thinking about tourism. Not in a way that we go into a community and we impose our will and tell them how we're going to do it, and this is the head fee and you're either in or out, but going into a community and saying, let's start with you and a conversation with you where we listen and you talk about what you would like tourism to look like in your community. So there's kind of a novel idea. Of course, there has to be some give and take because there's a business component. But that, I think, opened up a lot of eyes to say, maybe there's different ways to look at this, especially when we get into rural tourism. The mission, I just wanted to kind of read this verbatim. The mission of this innovative position is to ensure a thoughtful and considerate approach is taken in regard to tourism in remote Alaska Native villages and small towns. We work hand in hand with tribal leaders and citizens of these places to ensure our visitation is not disruptive, but rather bolsters local economies, terms set by each community, and grows the capacity of rural residents to benefit from the visitor industry. Because that's one aspect, right? People say, I see these people coming in, I see them walking the streets of the town. Is there something that could be in it more for me? And our answer is almost always unequivocally yes. What, do you have art? Do you have an idea for a little tour? What can we do to work together? And with Alaskan Dream Cruises, it works well because we're talking about fairly small group sizes, from 12 passengers to our largest 76 passengers. With Tlingit Haida, they have some entities like Smokehouse Catering, their Sacred Grounds Coffee. So as you can imagine, we serve a lot of coffee. And so they've been a great partner in that effort. Renewable Juneau is a group that's working on carbon offset. So we've joined hands with them to to work in that space as well. That's kicking off. Some things aren't, and again, I could go down the list, some things aren't on here, like the entity Juno Greens with hydroponic farms. And so we have culinary tours that our salads are gonna be grown in Juno from this hydroponic farm, so as well as herbs and other garnishments. And of course, the sustainable seafood, we're always working in that space. And importantly, to the owner and to the companies as well, we take a lot of guests on Allen Marine. And they kind of are our audience members for 3 hours at a time. And so we worked with local entities, and we'll be starting land acknowledgements at the beginning of our tours as well. I kind of circling back, I only use myself as an example to prove a point. You just knew Allen Marine growing up. It was just kind of a household name, and I think a lot of people are shaking their heads if you're from Southeast Alaska. And we want that to continue. So one of our big, as far as our outreach, community outreach, is to work with school districts, and we're going to be even working harder on those initiatives to make sure that it's amazing how many youth haven't been to some of the coolest places that are right in their backyard, or even seen some of the coolest animals that are right in their backyard. And so to get them on Allen Marine boats, have a chance to see orcas, to go perhaps even to a glacier, or to have these experiences, and along the way learn as we try to bear our culture and our legacy is an important thing to us. So I would just mention, after hearing all of this, if you are from a place, a community that you think, we don't do a ton with Allen Marine, or we've got an idea, or we'd like to talk, then that is the most important part of this conference for us, is those connections and that regenerative tourism, and to work towards this. So thank you so much. We're thrilled to be part of this conference and this important work, Camille, that you helped put together. So thanks so much. Everyone comments on that.
That was actually fun to see a contrast in initiatives for large cruise ship and small cruise ship industry activity here in Southeast Alaska. I had to smile about his notebook. Please show that notebook to everybody.
Everyone comments on it.
Yeah, the old Sitka cover. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to my good friend, and let's let him talk about the airline industry. Yes, I did call you my good friend.
Mistake, right? Mistakes were had. I think I'm going to follow Preston's lead and go out front. Let's talk a little bit here, because I couldn't see it otherwise. My name's Scott Halberstadt, Alaska Airlines. I know many of you out there. I'm going to take you through a little bit about, where we are today. I'm going to show you some maps with spaghetti lines, because all airline people show you maps with spaghetti lines. We're going to talk about our virtuous value cycle at Alaska Airlines. Then we're going to go into where we're going and what we're doing, which is really what Camille asked me to talk about. And I'm going to limit my storytelling because, we try to believe and be on time at Alaska Airlines, and if I started telling too many stories, we'd go into the 3 o'clock hour, which I don't think anybody would appreciate. But I am going to open up with one. I mean, how many people out there remember the movie or the series The Love Boat? Got a few people. There we go. I remember back in the mid '70s riding the school bus in Ketchikan to Howling, and in the summer, about once a week, you'd see the Sun Princess or the Island Princess out in the harbor, and you'd know that Julie was out there, and Captain Snoopy was out there, and, well, Isaac, and he's my favorite one today, but not at that point in time. But, I'd just like to, I'd like to thank our partners in the small and the big cruise industry, because growing up in Ketchikan, our economy changed overnight with the changing of the Tongass and the roadless rule. And if it wasn't for the cruise industry coming in and supporting the community with jobs and the tourism industry, it would be a different world today. And so Thank you both. What you guys do is incredibly important. I got to live out of Sitka for one summer when I was with TAC 1. I flew for Jerry Scudero, Ascension from Mount Metlakatla, and we got to take people to Met, we got to take people to Kasan, talking about that. You bring people into Kasan, you bring the mail into Kasan. But the one year I got to fly out of Sitka, I mean, we'd take visitors over to Lake T-Cats when the weather was good. It was just a great time. Sitka and all of Southeast are just truly amazing. Okay, there's my own story. Unless I can't get this figured out. Down. You told me that. I heard that. Okay, who are we? I think most people in here know who Alaska Airlines is. But to give you some details, I think it might surprise you a little bit. Can you hear me without the microphone? Thank you.
What?
Exactly. Alaska Airlines is the 5th largest airline in the United States. We represent about 7% of the domestic capacity in the US. The other 4 that are in front of us are gargantuan. They represent about 20% to 22% of the market per company. So while we are the 5th largest, we're still really a small, scrappy little airline. We serve about 120 communities across the United States and in 5 different countries. We average about 1,200 flights a day. We have 23,000 employees. When I started back in 2001, we had about 10,000. We serve 5 hubs, I think everybody knows that. Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Anchorage, and Los Angeles. Those branch out to the other 120 destinations we serve. We're global with over 900 destinations with our recent relationship or entry into One World. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we start talking about spaghetti lines. And yeah, so that's what we are nationally. Here's what we look like here in Alaska, which is really what I care about and what I do. And there's my phone, sorry. Yes, Alaska is this big, and Kathleen, I'm sorry, I've still got Dutch Harbor up here if you're out here. We don't serve Dutch anymore directly, but we do serve Dutch through some other airlines. But Alaska Airlines serves 20 communities in the state of Alaska. We've got over 1,900 employees up here. We have almost 560,000 mileage plan members across Alaska. We have over 450,000 Club 49 members across the state. My boss looks at me all the time, Haberstad, why can't you get the last of the state residents to be Club 49 members? It's, I'm scratching my head on that one, but I'm working every day. My team's working hard every day to make sure we try and get them all. Club 49 members this last year saved on average $22 million in benefits from the program, which includes the 4 different pillars. Freight for less, if you want to ship freight intra-Alaska, you can ship it for $49 in tax for up to 100 pounds. If you travel to the lower 48 as a Club 49 member, you get 2 free bags, whether you have status on us or not, because you have Club 49 status. We have Travel Now certificates. If you got to travel last minute, that's when the fares are oftentimes the worst, whether it's a family emergency, or you've been in Sitka and it's been raining for 49 days and you just need to go see the Hawaiian sun. They work for that as well. And then weekly travel specials through Club 49. In the summer of 2022, we served 10 of the top markets out of Anchorage. This year we will serve 11. And we're introducing the E175. And while the E175 isn't in Southeast, and we have no vision of it being in Southeast next year or the following year, I think there is a mission for it here eventually. And the E175 is a 76-seat jet that you would ride on Horizon Airlines as you go to the lower 48. Okay, I promised you spaghetti lines. These are our 1,200 daily flights to the 5 different countries in which we serve. And again, when I started, we didn't fly past Chicago. And this wasn't there, that wasn't there, these weren't there. And in fact, we didn't fly Seattle to Chicago, we flew Anchorage to Chicago was our first transcon flight in late 2000. And today, we serve all these communities, which is just fantastic. We are taking Alaskans to where Alaskans want to go. And if you look at this map, Alaska Airlines serves 80% of the population of the United States. They are within 1 hour of the communities in which we serve. So we're really trying to bolster up the West Coast to serve the nation off the West Coast and really be the West Coast airline. And I consider Alaska in the West Coast, and I know that's not where Alaska is supposed to be on the map. One World. What is One World and what does it mean to y'all? I mean, the reality is Alaska Airlines, we know who we are. We are a domestic carrier. We serve some international destinations, but they're in North and South America. We're likely not going to go across the pond, either pond, because we don't fly wide bodies. We've recently gone to an all Boeing fleet again, or in the process. We've got a few Airbus we got to get out of the system, but we will within the next 18 months. And we will again be an all Boeing fleet. And while, you know, the new Maxes do have some legs to get across to Japan or potentially across the Atlantic to England, we feel as though we're a domestic carrier. But for us to be successful tomorrow, we know that you don't always just want to fly domestically. Sometimes you want to go internationally. And there's the Evil Empire, a company that frequents Sitka in the summer, that gives you that opportunity. And we did it. So we joined, we're blessed to be able to join oneworld. There are 14 different airlines in oneworld, and they will take you to over 900 destinations across the world, giving you what you want with your Alaska Airlines miles or purchasing a ticket. Now you can buy tickets, you can use your miles today to travel to all these destinations. By the end of the year, if everything goes well and as we plan, you'll be able to purchase those tickets on alaskaair.com. So we continue to grow that. And boy, my slides just didn't work out right. They're not being, the transition didn't make it. Anyway, this is our virtuous cycle. At Alaska Airlines, you know, we seem to have had the right president in the seat at the right time. Back when I first started, it was John Kelly, and John Kelly was a very charismatic marketing individual. And he really brought on some of the old commercials that I think some of you probably remember, where you've got the guy standing in front of the bathroom going, do you have 2 quarters for $5? Because you had to use quarters to get in there, into the restroom. And he really elevated our marketing game to make us a more well-known brand off the West Coast. And then we transitioned out from him to Mr. Bill Ayer, who was really a numbers-driven marketing guy, which was inspiring because he took Alaska Airlines from the spot where it was okay to break even. I mean, in the early 90s, early 2000s, the airline industry just broke even at best. I mean, if you made a couple dollars, it was a banner year. Bill brought the mentality that we shouldn't benchmark ourselves against other airlines that did that. We need to benchmark ourselves against Fortune 500 companies and really elevate the return to our shareholders. And so he took us into that age, and then it was followed by Mr. Brad Tilden, who just a great president of ours, here many times in Sitka, and he was an Eagle Scout. I mean, he was just a people person. Literally, he was an Eagle Scout. People person. To today, where we have Mr. Ben Manacucci, who is an amazing president, because he really focuses on, he's an engineer by trade, and he believes in getting things on and off on time, but he also believes in the holistic value of a person's health. We just came out of COVID, where our frontline employees were hired to talk to you, to interact with you, because they wanted you to have the best guest experience possible. Then in COVID, we put masks on them. We made a mask police, and forcing you to put your mask on because it's what we had to do during the times. And it was a hard 2 years. A hard 2 years for you, and it was a hard 2 years for them. Ben realized that. This last year, we hired over 8,000 people at Alaska Airlines. We're slated to hire another 3,000 people at Alaska Airlines this year. What Ben saw was we need to get everybody grounded in our culture and who we are at Alaska Airlines, where we've come from, where we're going, and make sure that they are mentally healthy so they can serve our guests. And so this year, we've taken all of our frontline personnel through what we call a care retreat, telling them where Alaska Airlines is from. We were founded in the state of Alaska, Alaska Star Airlines, Anchorage out to the Bristol Bay region, here in Southeast. We are built up of Coastal out of Juneau, Ellis out of Ketchikan, which evolved to Alaska Coastal Ellis when we were serving Sitka back with the PBYs, taking from where we were to where we want to go, which was really eye-opening to me, because he believes that if they are not physically and mentally, our employees are not physically and mentally healthy, they cannot deliver good service for you. And so that's where we drive our guests down to our communities. Our communities are who we are in the state of Alaska. We invest about $5.5 million in cash and in kind in the state of Alaska to associations, to nonprofits, and to schools. I mean, it's a hard day where you won't find a school auction that doesn't include a pair of Alaska Airlines tickets. And the reason we're doing that is because it helps kids, A, get out in front of the public to generate funds so they can travel, and B, you know what, they're more than likely going to fly on us, so it's just a way that we're reinvesting. And lastly, as you go with our people, making sure that they're healthy, delivering for our guests, we deliver for our communities on a daily basis, and then at the end of the day, we're driving value for our owners, which are our shareholders. And I hope some of you are shareholders out there. I think we're at about $42 today. We'll rise, I promise. Okay, what are our priorities? And this is where we're getting into what I was actually asked to talk about. Innovating for our guests.
Get that. Could you try again?
Okay, Siri. Grow with an efficient fleet and doing better for our planet. Innovating for our guest experience. Who here likes to stand in line?
I thought so.
Keith, stop. Who here likes to stand in line besides Keith? But generally, I don't think you like standing in line. What we are doing is we are reinventing the lobby experience at Alaska Airlines. And so you're going to see us start with the beta product here in Sitka. We've got a great working relationship with the Sitka leadership, including your mayor here. I wish I...
Is that what you call it?
To ensure a smooth transition to the airplane to points where you're going. This is a vision of what the Seattle lobby is going to look like. We're going to turn SeaTac into a world-class hub. SeaTac is not what you expect to be a world-class hub. It's clunky, it's hard, and sometimes the TSA lines go all the way out into the parking garage. And so we're finding ways to improve that to make a better experience for you. We're also changing the way we do bag tags, which we're going to start. There's a point in time, and it'll be probably by the end of the year, that we're going to ask you to be checked in prior to coming to the airport. I think most of you are probably already doing that now on your smartphone or your computer at home, but we've got a subset of folks that just for some reason don't like checking in before they get there. What that does is it gives us a better idea of who's actually going to show up to the airplane. It helps us load plan better, and it helps get us off on time and get you to where you want to be on time. We're going to start beta testing that here in Sitka this summer. And so we're working right now with the lodges and locals to educate them on that, because when you go out to the airport, it's going to be a different experience. We're going to ask that you be checked in prior to getting there this summer, and then you can print off your boarding tags and go from there. Speaking of boarding tags, we believe that you probably want to know where your bags are, and we want to know where your bags are. So currently we're beta testing digital bag tags where you will be able to track your bag wherever it is. Ideally, it's on the airplane, onto a cart, onto the conveyor belt, but if for some reason it doesn't get there in 20 minutes like we tell you it's going to, you'll know where it is, and more importantly, we'll know where it is, and we'll be able to get it to you quicker. We hope to have all of those rolled out in the coming years to where it's just a normal process. Okay, and we're spending about $2.5 billion over the next 3 years to improve the infrastructure across our network. Talked a little bit about Seattle. We're doing stuff in Portland. San Francisco, we're doing stuff. LA, we're doing stuff. More importantly for us here in the state of Alaska, we own 13 of the 20 terminals that we operate in the state of Alaska. So if you go to Bethel, or you want to start flying to Bethel, you got to build a terminal. So we built a terminal a long time ago. Barrow, Bethel, Nome, Kotz. I won't name them all. Cordova, Yakutat, Wrangell, Petersburg, but Gustavus, Kodiak. They're all in need of updates. You know, they were designed prior to 9/11, before we had TSA and security. And you know, I'm just preaching to the choir here. Hold rooms, even here in Sitka, are challenging at times, especially in the morning hours. We're finding ways to improve those in the facilities we own. In fact, we'll be investing about $60 million in these terminals over the next 2.5 years. And path to net zero. We've got a goal internally to have a path to net zero by 2040. And that's, well, 2040 sounds like a long ways away. It's not. I mean, the reality of the matter is we burn fossil fuel, and we burn a lot of it. And so we're finding ways to improve, to reduce the burning of fossil fuel, A, because it is better for the environment, but B, it also saves us money. And there are things that we can do along the way in which we do it. So if you get on an airplane, for example, and it's hot as all get out in that airplane. The reality is we're not running the APU on the engine when we probably should be. And when we run the APU, that fires up the air conditioning system on the airplane, which cools the airplane. What we want to try and do at all the destinations in which we serve is have ground-based power that we can plug our airplanes in so we don't have to run the APU, so we're not burning gas while we're sitting there at the gate. As we taxi out, we're educating our pilots that, you know what? You don't need 2 engines to taxi. You only need 1 engine to taxi. So when we only run 1 engine until we get towards the end of the takeoff, we're saving money along the way. It's those kind of things that are helping us in our operational efficiency to get to our goal of net carbon neutral by 2040. Fleet renewal. We are renewing our fleet. We were blessed going into COVID that we had most of our aircraft paid for, and we had a very strong cash balance sheet. We are growing and buying bigger, more fuel-efficient airplane. Whenever you go to the next level of an aircraft, so going from the 700 to the 800 to the 900, you get a 20% increase in fuel efficiency for the plane. You also get about 20% more seats in the plane. So it's an opportunity to give us a competitive advantage over our competitors while being more fuel efficient along the way. That's another piece of our sustainability 2040 goals. It also kind of creates somewhat of a challenge. I mean, when we get bigger airplanes, and so I said, I think eventually the U-175 is probably going to be a part of the mix in Southeast. In a community like Bethel, we used to fly 3 flights a day to Bethel, morning and afternoon and evening. That was in a smaller aircraft. It was in a combi aircraft that had 76 seats. Today we fly 2 flights a day in an 800, which actually has more seats than we had with the 3 daily flights, but it reduces frequency, which creates a challenge for communities, because communities like frequency, gives you the opportunity to do day trips, better time your schedule, so on and so forth. So we've got to work between, in the state of Alaska, we've got work to do with respect to meeting our community's needs with respect to frequency and capacity. Sustainable fuel, this is going to be the biggest piece that's going to get us to carbon net neutral by 2040. SAF is, there's not enough throughput currently. There's not enough out there for us to do it. We've proven you can run on sustainable aviation fuel. In fact, we just signed a deal with Shell to provide sustainable aviation fuel in LA. And we're going to continue to look for ways to get more SAF into the system. Getting SAF into the system is how we see us getting to net neutral by 2040. New technologies. Technology is going to get us to a better future. And then I know a lot of our partners here in the room are doing carbon offset programs with respect to trees. We believe that's a part of what's going to happen, but for us, we believe it's a small part. We believe we've got to get the sustainable aviation fuel, more volume of that to get us where we need to go. And with that, that's the end of that, but I think there's a video. I know there's a video. There we go. I talked way too fast. I covered a lot of information. I'll be here this afternoon if you have any questions for me. But I'll have you know it's 1:29.
Well, that was fun. I'm sitting here listening to Preston talk about the large cruise industry that he represents. And I go backwards as a young fella, and I remember the Mariposa was the biggest ship that came to Sitka, and it tied up at the pulp dock out of Alaska Pulp Corporation, and the Love Boat was coming here. And look at us now with what he was presenting today. Smile about Zach and what he represents, because when I started in the visitor industry, it was Silver Bay tours with two wooden boats. And the St. Maria was like a huge addition to the Silver Bay operation for Allen Marine, and that's all they were. And look at them now.
I don't remember that.
Did you just call me old? And then who in Sitka can't forget how we got off this island back in the day? The turnaround, the little Grumman Goose to get from here to Juneau to get out of Southeast Alaska. And look at what they're up to now. And it's pretty fun to see how far they've all come in these 3 different industries. I'm gonna take a little bit of liberty because I want to make sure we get a couple of questions from the crowd, because this is some pretty engaging information they've all provided with their initiatives. So I want to make sure I give you guys a chance to ask some questions, and I'm gonna actually start with my own question, which I think I mentioned to you 3 early, which is me. I love these initiatives. Every one of them, all 3 presenters provided some pretty exciting stuff. My question is just a simple practical one. What sort of challenges do you see in your specific industry with regard to where you're trying to get to with your initiatives? And I'll just leave it to you 3 to tackle that question, and then we'll take questions from the audience.
Yeah, thank you for that, and great presentations by my colleagues here. As I look here in the room, it is clear that there are a lot of great storytellers. I think I might have seen something on that coming up, but I would say for us as a global company trying to have a local presence and influence, it's our ability to be connected locally and tell that story. So it just requires a different approach that we haven't really done in the past. And it's something that we're really looking forward to working with, again, even some of the people in this room.
Well, yeah, I think that people probably could take a wild guess at some of our challenges. I remember when we were trying to bounce back in 2021 from COVID and starting to do tours, and I was getting calls from newspapers saying, we hear there's staffing challenges, where'd they all go? I don't know, you tell us, but I think there's just a phenomenon that happens when you break the cycle. So you take a break in years and people go do whatever they're gonna do. And so certainly there is an employee challenge that goes hand in hand, of course, with the housing challenge. But I'll say even beyond the obvious seasonal housing, that becomes even, and I've been privy to several higher management level people that are maybe going to come up and relocate to Sitka or another community, and they're like, man, it's tough to find a place to stay here. So we're always battling that, even with the 150 to 200 year-round employees that we have.
Keith, I know you asked about the industry. I think I'll just reflect internally at Alaska Airlines as we continue to grow and we continue to go new places that our guests want us to take them. Maintaining who we are is a challenge. That's why I was really impressed with Ben Menicucci and doing the care retreat and talking about where we came from. But at the end of the day, I think it's really incumbent upon Marilyn Romano, my boss, my counterpart Tim Thompson, and myself to continue to educate people at Alaska Airlines on why things are different in the state of Alaska, why we do things different in the state of Alaska. Because we're blessed to make a difference in people's lives every day. And that's something that I never want to see gone. So that's what I wake up thinking about every day.
Yeah, still exciting stuff. That's what I see over the last 45 minutes. I'd like to see if anybody out here, I know we've got some Sitka Chamber members in here as well. If you have any questions, don't be shy, raise your hand. They will definitely be available during the roundtable discussions, but I would love to take any questions you might have in this moment. You three just stunned this crowd.
That's called being long-winded. We covered a lot.
Well, one of the features I like about the conference, for those of you from the chamber, we're actually going to be having these three gentlemen, along with all of our other panelists today, in a roundtable discussion about 3:30. It'll be an open, just come sit and ask direct questions of any one of these three individuals. So with that, how about a nice round of applause for these three gentlemen? A great luncheon presentation.
Right?
They're just trying to get back.
Okay, as our chamber members are exiting the room, we are heading for a break right now. We're only a few minutes behind, but I'd still like to give you a 15-minute break because I believe this might be the last opportunity you're going to have with the artisan market out front. So let's take a 15-minute break. It is 1:35 right now, so do the math. We'll see you here at 1:50. And please make sure you go out and smile at those local artists. I know I need to smile one more time because I think they lifted my checkbook pretty well with my purchases already. We'll see you back here at 1:50.
You're watching Sitka Community TV. Be sure to like and subscribe if you like what you see.